there's a ton to recommend. Scum and Villainy, probably to recommend Blades in the Dark. I've got the collector's edition one with the fancy orange blades on the front and cool, you know,
The one that has no text on it.
the one that has no text on it. You just have to know that that's the Blades in the Dark book.
Uh huh.
And again, it's from a genre point of view, it's probably right in my wheelhouse. And there's a lot of games that I like on paper that have that I've noticed have a similar downtime sort of mechanic. Mouse Guard has it. By extension, some of the other like Torchbearer, um, this one has it, and there's some cross pollination ideas. Certainly, the guy who wrote this game's got some history with Blades in the Dark and things like that. And in practice, those downtime games never quite work for me. They just, for whatever reason, I don't know.
I, I find the system just really, really elegant and interesting mechanics, thought out very interestingly. I just don't find it as fun as I want it to be,
Yeah, and
or as I expect it to be.
maybe
It,
I think
it feels too limiting to me. I mean, I feel like it's like, oh, you only have two things to do.
yeah.
Well, I got to heal myself. So,
Yeah. Well, the downtime thing especially is it's
yeah,
like
that's what I mean.
downtime's either. And the thing is, some of my favorite things about the game are in downtime because of the thing. Like Armin's got his thing with like, I want to become a noble. I love that. I love that character project thing. That idea that just kind of ticking away at. But there's other games. You know, a lot of indie games you get with mechanics that have been developed in response to something that didn't have mechanics that people were sort of doing in a game, and they wanted to mechanize it either because it was being abused or it wasn't satisfying, or it was really cool, but they wanted a way to share it with other people that where they could not have to explain it and just hope that you got it right. Because you can have personal projects and stuff in lots of different games and stuff, but how do you put like road signs around that? So you make this downtime mechanic, and it either really works, for whatever reason, doesn't necessarily work for me. Um, I like ghost peppers. Doesn't mean I should eat them all the time. They just anyway, ghost pepper pizza. Anyway, so whatever we end up doing, I think we've come to the conclusion. Whatever we end up doing, we probably don't end up using this game system. For all that Mike offered to take over the reins and continue to run the game, the upshot is, yeah, but that still has us playing this game. Um,
Actually, all I offered to do was run a one shot, but
oh, okay.
or
Well,
like a mission, but still,
yeah. Um,
I thought you were
regardless.
signing up for 3 months of For the King.
I did. I was very pleased. I just mentioned parenthetically, and we were up in the mountains, so I couldn't come to the most recent game day. But I happen to hold right now in my hot little hands an actual physical deck of For the Queen cards. I have got it to bring to a game day, and I am absolutely intending to do that. Because I think it's a fun game.
Mhm.
I have gotten some good mileage out of it already, and I've only ever played it online. Um, so buttons. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm scrolling up now to look at since I happen to be already in the thread at the unproposed games list. Um, mm,
That's the list of games that are not being proposed.
I know. I'm just kind of looking at this one because I'm kind of smiling at this one because like Band of Blades is on there, and that's an even darker version of the Blades in the Dark, system. Again, a setting that's right in my. It's basically playing the Black Company using this system, and you think about like, oh, take Blades in the Dark and have them run the Black Company. Yes, absolutely, that would totally work. And am I going to play it? No, probably not.
I will just be honest. I'm not really enthused about games in the general larger genre of bad people doing bad things to other bad people.
Yeah,
And
and I
that feels like
I absolutely get that. I do. That's a
Yeah.
weird. It's a weird thing to do. Of the stuff though, I remember when we talked. I don't want to. We've talked several times about Hearts of Woolen. It feels like there's some love there, but the Kickstarter just wrapped up, I really want the final product because there's going to be a ton of really good stuff in there, and I kind of don't want to play it until we've got like all the pieces. Because frankly, the playtest documents are not complete. They're playable, but I want, if I'm going to play this and really like wring the juice out of it, and I'm not worried about like having the system get in the way because it's powered by the apocalypse. It's powered by the apocalypse stuff, and talking about a game system I'm not going to worry about running ever. Or playing, for that matter. We came, and then I threw out, at that point I mentioned Worldwide Wrestling, and that turned into this whole like sub-thread of like, now wait a minute, maybe we do want to do that. So I realized this is the unproposed game list, but some of these were like, a lot of people were like, actually, I sort of think this is awesome.
I mean, depending, you could just say, like, here's what's on the other side of the gate, which is we open the gate and there's a bunch of lucha wrestlers over there. And they're like, nope, close it.
My people!
There is something, that is actually kind of accurate. There is something to be said for, I've heard absolutely nothing but good stuff about the Veil, and I know that I feel like I know, maybe I've completely projected this, but I feel like I know that, it's sort of like introspective cyberpunk stuff is sort of in Bill's wheelhouse a little bit in terms of an interest.
I backed the latest one, and they sent me like the first 2 books, which is the Veil and Veil Cascade. Those are literally sitting in my hand right now. I will just say that these are some heavy goddamn books. Do not think you're just gonna like. This is not something to dive into lightly.
Yeah, I only have it's not a one-off kind of thing. I only have them as PDFs, and I have the first 2. And Frazier definitely takes sort of an artistic, sort of literary fiction approach to the. He's always got like a statement in mind with his games, and that's definitely. But the Veil's really kind of a neat thing. They do some really neat stuff with stats, with the way they use the stats and the way they use the and some of it gets modified slightly and used in Hearts of Wulin's DNA makes me very excited because they borrow some really cool stuff from the Veil. They borrow some of my favorite stuff from Masks. Lowell generally likes a lot of the same games that I like, and the stuff that he's borrowed in all of them makes me pretty happy. Veil does a really neat thing kind of with stats where like you rolling certain stats and the damage that you take if you take damage like sort of locks that stat so you can't use it again until you unlock it. So if you got the uber stat, you just can't keep hammering it over and over like using your superpowered gun stat to shoot people because it doesn't work anymore. And Hearts of Wulin does something kind of similar. It's pretty cool. So the Veil's out there. I think it's really cool, but to Bill's point, it's not a light and breezy pickup game. We'd have to decide we want to do a cyberpunk thing, and that's an undertaking in and of itself.
I will go further. This is not just regular cyberpunk, and Frazier is like a serious cyberpunk aficionado.
Oh, yeah, he is.
For anyone who's followed his Twitter, he has gone all in on like the branching tree of cyberpunk's many like spin-off genres. Like there's some quasi magical stuff in this book.
Yeah.
Where like you're like a warden of nature, and just like there's this place where like the green is growing back, and it's very sort of mystic in that sense.
Which is funny because he hates Shadowrun. Like,
well, Shadowrun is like the corporatization of all these concepts. He's really more like on the marginal fringes of it. He's identified like the marginalized people as kind of the heart of the cyberpunk story, and looked at Shadowrun, where Shadowrun is all glitz and glamour and hey, you guys are celebrities.
Yeah. The point of Shadowrun is to be, when you fight the corporations until you can finally become one, and then rub your little hands together and cackle with glee. It's kind of sort of missed the point on that one, guys. What else? I'm not in the right one. But, maybe we're thinking too closely about specific systems, and we just want to think about, broadly speaking, genres. Do we want to stick with sci-fi? Are we looking for something fantasy? Do we want something short and sweet that's a little bit more creepy or I don't know.
I think it's worth also asking, like, we had a couple people who were very keen on this whole "what's behind the gate" thing.
Yep.
And are people looking for a game that answers that question?
Yep.
No.
Not especially.
That was easy.
I just want Joyce to tell us what's there, not.
I didn't
play it.
see. You have this funny.
I know. I'm pretending like you know what you want. You know what you're doing.
No, I always know what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is different than what everybody assumes I'm doing. People think of, I told this to the girls at one point in time, that people sort of imagine my prep being like careful plotting and lots of backstory and stuff. And what my actual prep is getting one good idea every 2 weeks and then arguing with it for a month. Internally. And then, the offshoot of that is the other thing. What I hadn't really had a lot of thoughts about it, except that I did get an idea that I really, really liked in terms of like what's broadly behind there. Reading about one of the guys who wrote, the guy who wrote Night Witches and some other pretty well known Fiasco, stuff like that. He wasn't GMing it, but he played in a game where they wanted to sort of do the Expanse. And the GM decided on just using Apocalypse World 2nd edition. Not any reskin of it at all. Just absolutely they're very, very, as he explained it, they're very, very lazy people. And they did the absolute minimum amount of like word swapping necessary, usually while they were playing.
I think I've read this.
Yeah, to basically make the sci-fi thing work. So the driver was the guy with the spaceship, and the chopper, who is like a guy who runs like a biker gang in Apocalypse World. They just like, okay, well, your guys are dudes who for sociological, social, possibly religious reasons, never leave their vac suits. Like they just don't. And their bikes were their powered vac suits. And they kind of went with it like that and it ended up being sort of the Expanse if you mixed in Reavers. And I got to thinking about it because, but they really had to struggle with like figuring out what in Apocalypse World, you've got the Maelstrom as a sort of like background noise radiation psychic thing that's just out there and dangerous. And that didn't really work for them. They ended up with there was sort of like a sentient, halfway psychic, telepathic AI on the ship. So it was more of a localized thing that they had to deal with, that they sort of used for the moves that had to do with the Maelstrom. But I thought, actually that would work really, really well in something very, very close to the Scum and Villainy setting. If you were in some kind of situation where the Way has sort of gone dark and feral. And then my next thought was, for instance, if it's in a system where it's been locked off for 500 years and basically had to feed, it's just been in this cyclic, 5,000 years, 5 million years, whatever. If it's been cut off in this, isolated system and has basically gone feral and feeding on itself for that long. And so for me, it wasn't exactly what you find when you open up the gate is a system where it is a location where everybody's playing by the Apocalypse World game system. Like it's almost like the Lego movies, right? You go through, you travel to another world and suddenly you're in the Old West and all the pieces are different and so are the color schemes and stuff. And like you go through the gate and it's like, oh shit, guys, we just transferred to another game system. Watch out. So in really broad terms, it's more like a post-apocalyptic type setting. And then that was about as far as my brain got, Margie. So there you go. That was my one good idea, and now I'm arguing with it. I mean that's people joke, but or people think I'm joking, and I'm never actually joking. So that was sort of where I was going with that. I kind of like the idea of like we're at the 16th session, some stuff, a major thing happened. There's been a big shift, and then we switch entirely over to this other setting where you've been cut off, and what's life like, in this little feral system, and you're the weirdo brainer who can contact the the way, but God, why would you? But well, obviously because it's ridiculously powerful and useful to be able to do that, and you got these old cobbled together ships and stuff like that. And just as things are coming to a head, the dead gate opens, and this broadcast comes out with this smiling, besuited, tattooed, permanent makeup, eyeshadowed asshole with a crisp haircut goes, "Greetings from," so on and so forth.
The rest of the universe.
Greetings from the rest of the universe, and yeah, everything's kind of turned on its head as that happens. As your other characters show up. So kind of a fun thing, but that was really kind of as far as I went with it, and I was mostly playing around with it at the time, just because of Morningstar. Anyway. So that's the only answer I've got, Margie, is vague ideas. Anyway. So wish list stuff, guys. Figure this out. Or we do something that's really kind of there's a couple options. This one ended up, I think the other upshot wasn't so much like I like the game, I don't like the game. I believe one of the other consensus things was this went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. That seemed like a consistent hot take.
I said that only because.
Well, so did James, though.
And I also thought it.
Yeah.
I was just
I felt like we were kind of continuing along because everybody felt that, oh, well, yeah, I kind of thought we'd be done by now, but I don't want to say anything because everybody's kind of going along and we're doing our thing, so
yeah,
let's keep at it.
I'm glad that
we're not a clean stopping break.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the big thing. I mean, I'm glad that everybody spoke up as soon as the subject was broached, but please don't feel as though any particular person needs to broach the thing. Because...
But don't you be having so much fun?
What's that? I was having so much fun? Really? Okay. I can't find the original pitch thread that we had.
It already got said in the chat.
Yeah, I listened to the proposed games list thread, if that's what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. As opposed to the... No, I'm just joking. Oh my God, there's a ton up there. I do have the final version of After the War now, at least. Anyway. Let me see.
Well, I will tell you this. Any sort of long-term terror sort of game is not going to be my game.
Yeah, and I'm not...
Yeah, I agree with what Margie just said.
Yeah.
What I wish is I could take my knowledge of the Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers expansion and just project it into all your minds. And the reason I say this is because it is exactly that kind of game. The premise of that particular expansion is there's a second world that's been overrun by light, and you have all like these angelic beings just running everywhere, but they're predatory and mindless and instinctual, and they're basically destroying civilization.
I love that idea. I really do love that idea.
But your job is to stop them, but your victory condition is bring back the night sky.
No. So yeah, we're definitely. It's pretty clear. I mean, the longest dark game I could see playing, and not necessarily with this group, would be something like the Mountain Witch. But that's a blood opera. I mean, the happiest ending I've ever seen in any of the Mountain Witch games I've ever been in or run is the guy who made it all the way back down to the mountain with all the money and a new child because he adopted somebody else's kid and set them up for life and then committed seppuku watching them play down by the, as the sun set, watching the child play with the nursemaid and their governess and that sort of thing down by the water at the lake, and then quietly committing seppuku because of all the horrible shit he had to do to get there, with a slight smile on his face. That was literally the happiest ending we ever got out of that game, and it felt so happy because everything else was so terrible. it was still, if you knew going in, you're playing Samurai, it's probably not going to be a happy ending. But yeah, and that was 2 sessions, maybe. Felt longer. Anyway, so Mike, I don't think you have to worry about there being like DOIS deciding to run 35 sessions of like a horror game. I don't see that probably likely.
You say that, but we ran how many sessions of the game or this game?
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting it to be short. I was thinking about 12, and it went a little bit longer than that, but not a lot longer than that. Anything else, and this has nothing to do with game system stuff. I think, and somebody touched on this in their commentary and stuff. I think we missed the mark slightly in having a strong group concept. I don't know that ship's crew was enough. Like we're all in the ship together. Because yeah. I mean, we it worked pretty well in Star Wars. We're all rebels. We're all on the same team. We all have this goal. That kind of that was it was over the threshold far enough. Masks in 100 zillion different ways obviously tripped all kinds of good triggers, but certainly not least because you're all on the super team and you're doing X and you all have your own thing, but we've got that grounding thing. And I don't know that we necessarily hit that successfully. It looked like we had until you got into the nuts and bolts of it. And it was really, really easy for 3 people to be really into something and 2 other people to not give a shit. Character-wise, not necessarily player-wise, but for 2 other characters, you just have no investment. Like,
I think what this group's likes, because we like the story, is we like to have the flexibility to have our characters contribute to the story in a creative way.
Yeah. one of the nicest things about Masks is all you have to do is come up with how you help. You don't have to go, oh, this is how I'm going to help. I go through all this thing, but then I rolled shit so nothing happens. That's not helpful. It doesn't help with the narrative. It's like I've got team to spend and I have a way to describe how I help and the end. So really it's about making sure the mechanical part of it is making sure that you keep points in that pool, which I think is I think it's just and it doesn't work in every game system because to a certain extent that whole idea of the team thing is reinforcing the genre, which is what PTBA's Powered by the Apocalypse stuff in general is really good at reinforcing whatever genre it's meant to do. So backing up, I think we missed out a little bit on that sense of group cohesion that's really clicked for us. And I don't want to go so far as to say this game worked against that mechanically speaking, but I don't think mechanically it helped either. And since we were already off the mark, it wasn't nudging us back onto the mark. And we could have probably done something narratively or just at a meta level to nudge it back where it needed to be had I noticed it before somebody said something today. Like really not noticed it, but like really thought about like, oh, this is probably part of the thing that's not really clicking. I ran into it repeatedly during the game, but I never really articulated it in a way of like, oh, that's probably a thing that's probably not helping with us. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. And this doesn't speak to the other perfectly cromulent GMs that we have here that might be jazzed to run something.
Just for me personally, with genre, I'm not really interested in post-apocalypse.
Gotcha. I mean, if we have to rule stuff out.
I mean post-apocalyptic worlds, not the system.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're out of luck if you don't want to do a Powered by the Apocalypse. You're just you're out of luck. So not post-apocalyptic. Gotcha. Well, that's good because that rules out stuff kind of in every genre, which is useful.
So,
yeah.
If we
Fellowship.
Get like, I really like Fellowship. Anyway, I just finally got my hardcover copy of 2nd edition too.
I think what I like about Fellowship is there's a lot there about world building that happens right during character generation. Because if you're playing the dwarf, you get to say what a dwarf is. you know.
Oh yeah.
And
You
that's
can
really
say
neat.
basically what everything is.
Yeah, which is that's really neat. And there's
So
maybe
what do you mean by that? I'm not familiar with it.
okay, so it's Fellowship is exactly what it sounds like, Fellowship of the Ring kind of deal. You're a group that is on a
Quest.
and the playbooks are things like the dwarf, the elf. But I gotta grab my book.
The Harbinger.
I'll just give you a quick. There's my.
But the important part is, so
I've
let's
only got the
say
first edition.
Margie, you are playing the dwarf. Anytime anything comes up about dwarf stuff, is like, oh, we're in this dwarf town. Hey, dwarf, tell us about the traditions of this place.
Yeah, so you're very much a world builder with regards to the stuff that touches on your stuff. But even during character generation, here I'll do halflings because halflings are right here, and I know Margie has a soft spot in her heart for halflings and the gold that they steal from their companions. So parts of the halfling playbook are pretty straightforward. You know, the look, the stats, what their agenda is, do right, get some recognition, have some fun. Halfling core. All halflings have the following moves. The little folk. Sting like a bee. When you keep them busy by getting in close. Blah, blah, blah. You know, this kind of thing. But then the next page is, what is a halfling? Choose the option that best represents your people. Clever storytellers. They love to collect stories from afar, blah, blah, blah. Determined survivors. You have suffered many setbacks and tragedies, and they have never stopped you yet. You know exactly when to stand your ground and exactly when to bail. Mischievous tricksters. You know, when you want to have all halflings basically be Kender from Dragonlance. Or traveling nomads. So you're really defining culturally, like, sort of what they are. The elf one, like, one of the options is you're living plants.
You come from space.
You come from space. You're merfolk. Fairy, merfolk, star elf, wood elf, literally wood elf. Like, so there's a lot. I mean, the world is literally writing itself while you're, like, if you're the heir to this great nation, you decide, like, there's options to pick for. Yeah, you've got your options to pick from for, like, what represents your nation. You're the lost line of kings, the stalwart defenders, the forgotten lands.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, in a lot of ways, character generation really strongly, and I feel like the way they did this, and it's changed somewhat in the second edition, so I'd have to go loop back and look at it, but is it still true that the GM's character is legitimately a character, Mike?
The GM's character is literally the character, and they are the overlord.
Yeah, like the GM literally gets a playbook for Sauron. Yeah.
Oh no, but there are many different ones.
Yeah, there's.
Oh yeah. I'm sure. You know, the different choices of what Sauron could be.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a second.
See, which makes me immediately want to figure out if there's a way to do the creature of light thing that Bill was talking about. As
oh, there is.
Oh, that would be.
In fact, hold on a second. Allow me to break into my Kickstarter stuff really quick.
I didn't kickstart the second edition because I didn't know.
I did, but so here's the thing. Did you buy the PDF anywhere?
Of the second edition?
No, of the first edition.
I've got it somewhere.
They upgrade you for free through whoever you bought it from.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
Yeah,
then.
so if you got it through DriveThruRPG, they automatically replaced it with the second edition version, because the second edition is not that different.
I see.
They changed some things, like now one of the moves, which was take them out or whatever it's called. Finish them.
Finish them.
Finish them before was like, tell us how you finish them, and then pick the appropriate stat. Now it's, if you finish them with kind words and make them no longer a threat, roll blah. If you finish them,
nice. No, I like that. That's elegant.
Understanding them, you know, all that stuff. So those are the different things there.
I like that. Yeah, the core moves are, you know, speak softly, talk sense, keep them busy, look closely. You know, it's a thing. It's a whole thing.
So,
So that's Fellowship, and it's definitely not a post-apocalyptic thing necessarily. So that's good.
No, that sounds fun.
Mike's been a big proponent of it.
So what's the goal here?
You're taking out the Overlord.
You're on the quest to save the world. It's the Fellowship.
Right, you're trying to take out the GM. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're trying to kill the GM. I mean,
that's always fun.
What?
No.
No, we can't possibly play that.
Yeah, I know.
So the Overlord, their big defining thing is what sort of army do they have? Do they control the Horde, where it's just a whole bunch of swarming creatures? Or do they control an organization where they have an elite few? Do they have the Scourge, which is zombie-like blight, which, infects those around them? Or do they have the Titans, who are massive, a small, massive force?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but I do enjoy that they really have fun with some of the things. So one of the GM's moves is called Team Rocket.
Blasting off.
Yes.
No, choose up to 3 minions from your army and name them. When they work together, these minions cannot be damaged or destroyed. Whenever one of them would be, they all retreat from the scene. This group will tenaciously follow the Fellowship for the rest of the campaign, informing you where they are and what they've done recently. If the Fellowship recruits them as companions, this is only temporary. You can erase all the bonds the Fellowship hold with them at any time.
The picture, and I have to say, they do try pretty hard to like bust conventions mentally in here through the art design. There isn't a ton of art. There's a fair amount. It's good.
They commissioned a lot of art for the second edition, which is where most of the money went.
The Overlord picture at the beginning of the Overlord chapter is a lovely girl with a kick-ass afro, a black high-necked shirt with a pink bow, a sort of taffeta, I'm going to say...
Hold on a second, I'm just going to screen cap this. Because I'm looking at that picture right now because they reused that art for the second edition.
There's butterflies and a sword that looks like it came out of the new She-Ra movie or She-Ra TV show. It's got flowers on it. It's great. But yeah, this is lovely genre busting art. Bill, you are being very quiet.
Fellowship sounds fine to me.
Okay. All right. I mean, obviously it's good when we all speak up, so I just want to make sure that there's stuff here. Is this something that you have already in your library and can easily reference?
I would have to look, but I'm certainly able to get a copy of it.
Sure.
If not, I mean, for example, I just picked up Cyrun while we were talking.
Nice. I like Cyrun. I like superhero stuff. I like powers wildly out of control. If you'll pardon me, fucking love Amnesia Stories, and it is Amnesia Stories times however many people are playing. It is absolutely one of my favorite jams of all time. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I like it so much. I am sure that I will probably ironically be stricken down by Alzheimer's at an early age just to punish me for my obsession with these fucking things, but I fucking love Amnesia Stories, and the whole premise is you don't know anything about yourself, and here are these questions you have to answer. It definitely feels like it came out of that same generation of indie games that produce things like Inspectors, stuff like that.
I'm just sort of confused because I'm getting this like list of very specific games, a lot of indie games. And on the one hand, I hear I don't want to learn a new game system, but on the other hand, like these are all new game systems technically.
Oh, you have to understand, these are all new game systems, except I've played all of them, so these aren't ones I need to learn. I know Inspectors, I know Cyrun. I burned all of my learn a new game system from scratch, like by reading the book and just basically rereading it 40 times. I burned all that up like between 2009 and 2012.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I just hang out with like indie game designers and people who like these games a lot. And to me, sometimes it gets a little much because they're like, here's a game where you play a guy named George Ambrose on the day of June 15th,
Yeah.
1987.
That's
You're just like, okay.
There's some stuff there that, yeah, more power to them, but it doesn't necessarily, some of the stuff doesn't necessarily sound like fun to me. Or at least, it's sometimes I just want to shoot an orc, man.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to shoot orcs, unless you're playing an orc game.
Unless you're playing.
Some of the sword dream people will tell you you're wrong, but okay.
Kill skulls.
Yeah. Go hunt, kill skulls. Anyway, who will tell me I'm wrong? I missed what you said. It broke up.
Oh, okay. There's a certain segment on Twitter who is doing the whole like leftist answer to OSR games. The hashtag for that is Sword Dream. But there are some people who have come out with positions like, hey, if you bring orcs into your game and you kill them, that's racist. And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly fair to to deal with the issue of why are we just automatically killing orcs whenever we run across them? Well, usually because when we run across them, they're shooting arrows at us and trying to gut us and eat us. Okay.
That seems like
does that mean we should go out of our way to hunt down orcs? Okay, well, that's an interesting story in and of itself. So they're not wrong, but to simply say, oh, well, anytime that you're doing that sort of a thing, it's inherently evil and unjustifiable.
Yeah.
I'd question that.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, PBTA is awesome. And if you dial it all the way back to like World of Dungeons level, where you basically have the Defy Danger move and that's it, you can really kind of do a lot of stuff. But I mean, that's true of anything. If you get it down that far, the PBTA works best when you're trying to do a specific type of thing, like Fellowship. Mike, have you played it before, Fellowship?
I have played a convention game.
Okay. Would you say
where we defeated the Overlord? So.
Would you say, given our group, that it's now, realizing that, and knowing, of course, online automatically, I think doubles the number of sessions. At least increases by a third the number of sessions of play that you end up doing. Would you say it's could be a shortish game?
For our group, because I feel like we are not going to be like laser focused. We're going to take down every single one of the Overlord strongholds right here, right now. I'm going to put it in the 30 to 40 game session range.
So it's a big one. It's maybe not what we want to immediately switch to. Although,
honestly speaking, I mean, I don't necessarily need a short game to dive into next.
Yeah, neither do I.
All right.
Neither do I.
Now, I do want to be able to say, and I think you made this point, that, if we get into this and we're, 5, 6, 10 sessions in and it's not, the spark isn't there, for any individual, I think we need to feel free to say, something's not quite working right for me here. Can we talk?
Yeah.
And not feel like we're stuck doing 40 sessions.
We need to do. I'll take all blame on this. More check-ins. I'm scared of them. I'm just generally scared of them. It's stupid, but I don't.
It feels like a performance review.
What do they say? Like, if you can't look back at yourself like 5 years in the past and be somewhat annoyed or something, like feel some sort of negative emotion about the way you acted 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50, like you're not growing as a person. So what are we thinking, guys? Are we thinking Fellowship? It kind of feels like we sort of tripped over this by accident, but at least
serendipitously.
At least does it bear additional hard looking? I'm trying to think of any other ones that are kind of in that same vein. But it sure feels, I mean, in much the same way that Star Wars is an easy socket for me and superheroes are an easy socket for me, that sort of epic fantasy stuff is obviously something that I spent a lot of time growing up on and is a fun place to live in my head. So, and does anybody else want to run it? I'm fine with running it. I just want to know if everyone's like, Jesus, do I seriously again?
Are you fine with running it?
I am absolutely fine with running it. I mean, I love playing. I do, but I mean, the lion's share of my playtime forever has been GMing, so it's kind of where my head immediately goes anyway. So, you know, it is what it is. Might as well own it. I don't know. You'd have to ask Dave, preferably when I'm not around. I don't know if I'm that good of a player.
I'll find out Saturday.
What's that? Oh, right.
He is.
Yeah. I'm also pushy as fuck, which is, I think, part of just being a GM and then having to switch modes.
He is.
Thank you, Dave. I love you too. Oh my God.
Are we talking about Fellowship?
We're talking about Fellowship, and we're talking about, like, do we want to poke at it with a stick on the forum?
Yeah, no. I got that part. I just came in when we were talking about GMs, and I wanted to double check that it was.
The question was.
We decided we asked you if you wanted to be GM. You didn't say anything, so we decided you would be the person to run this.
Hooray!
Horrible decision.
So I think our options, it sounds like, are either James runs a horror game called Midterms for us all, or alternatively, we can try Fellowship and see how that works out.
Yeah.
Nobody has spoken up and said, "Hey, no Fellowship." It certainly satisfies most of the criteria that we outlined, which is give us an unambiguously heroic group that's going to have a reason to stick together.
Yeah.
And I am happy to, learn more mechanics to see that through.
I believe it's powered by the apocalypse. Am I right?
Well, yeah, but like every single move and every single playbook is effectively like a mini mechanic, and
Sure.
You're going to read that, and there's going to be things you're going to forget. There's going to be things like, hey, whenever you roll a 6 or less, it's like something happens, like those kind of rules.
Yeah. No, you're right.
For Powered by the Apocalypse to happen, you have to know the triggers.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's not just the dice roll. It's all that stuff. So that said, I'm still happy to run stuff if people stand up and say, hey, we want you we want to hear more about this, or we'd like to try this thing out. I would love to run Genesis sometime as a one-shot to show people what it's about.
I would be happy to play it. I think we should definitely sort of at a sub-conversational level talk about some one-shot Saturday games, because in all honesty, it may not be for this like the whole big group and stuff. I'd love to run Cyrun for people, but I'd also like to play. I kind of want to get my head around that diceless Powered by the Apocalypse thing that Henshin uses and Dream Askew uses and those things, because it's.
I can totally run a one shot of that.
Yeah, I'm down. So it sounds like we've got some fun stuff that we could sort of explore, try out.
So I guess Fellowship. If we're doing Fellowship, is this the point where I go to that link that I linked to, or I posted in the Roll20 chat, and
You're cutting in and out, Dave.
I can still hear him.
Okay, I'm cutting in and out.
And go ahead and buy the rule book.
I think so. I think you can safely invest in the second. Make sure you're getting the second edition. I'll have to go do likewise.
Let's take a look really quick. Yeah, if it's RPG drive-through, I think they only have second edition. That's where I got my copy from.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
I'll double check.
Okay. I sprung for the hardcover.
That does sound very nice. You can get the print books through drive-through.
Yeah.
They do print on demand.
Oh, I did not know that.
And basically,
I
they've
really
got
do.
it discounted now for the same price where you get the book and you get the PDF.
Oh,
so
nice. Oh, there you go. I probably can't get the hard copy as a free upgrade the way I can get the second edition, the PDF as a free upgrade, but it's definitely worth knowing. That's fine either way. All right. All right, guys. I don't know how we ended up getting to that. It was a whole lot of wandering around, and suddenly we tripped and fell over a treasure
We
chest.
move in mysterious ways.
We do, mysterious even to those who are doing the moving, apparently. So that's cool. And that's about all I got. I think now it's time to read a book, specifically that book. I'm gonna read some stuff, but not right now. Right now, I'm gonna go to bed. Guys, thanks so much. It is so easy for something like this to turn into some kind of drama-filled recrimination fest and regret and pain and stuff, and instead it was just like, hey, let's find a fun thing to do. That seems
You
like a good
regret
thing.
nothing.
I regret nothing.